Hi guys. So at the time I'm making this video, I had just uploaded a pretty controversial video, and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm even going to be here, if I'm off from this world, if I've shuffled off my mortal coil, hey, from the afterlife. I don't know if I'll have a channel or what'll happen, but we're gonna see. Anyway, so I thought after finishing up a pretty intense, pretty emotional, pretty angry video that I'd do something a little fun. And I wanted to talk about my favorite guilty pleasure movies that are based on books. And there's a lot of sex and violence in there, so good for you, right? So there's actually a lot of movies based on books that I love that I wouldn't call guilty pleasure. And so I'm not really, I'm only mentioning that there's a few of them out there that I love, and a few that people don't even know were based on books. Like, for example, well, one of my favorite movies is Die Hard. A lot of people now know that that was actually based on a book. Sorry, coughing fit, frog in the throat. Die Hard was based on the book Nothing Lasts Forever by Roderick Thorpe, which is actually a sequel to the book Detective. It's very different. I've read the book. It's very different from the movie, but it's still based on the book. Some of my favorite movies are based on other reading material, like graphic novels like The Crow and V for Vendetta. Obviously, there's a bunch of books out there that have been turned into movies that are actually pretty good, and where the book is lesser known. Did you know the movie A Wonderful Life was based on a story called The Greatest Gift by Philip Van Doren? Now, I'm not a fan of the movie. I'm just pointing it out. Actually, I can't stand the movie, but I don't like Christmas, so that's me. Or even the movie Clueless, the old 90s movie with Alyssa Silverstone. It was kind of fun for its time. It was actually, the basis of it was from the book Emma by Jane Austen. Or 10 Things I Hate About You with Heath Ledger. That was actually based off of, loosely, but it was the idea came from my favorite Shakespeare play, Taming of the Shrew. I love Taming of the Shrew. I love Much Ado About Nothing. That's probably my next favorite. And actually, if you don't know, there's a fun, I'm not going to call it good, but it's definitely fun adaptation of Much Ado About Nothing by Joss Whedon. It's actually a blast. It's a good way to get into Shakespeare too. Even the great movie Who Killed Roger Rabbit was based on a book by Gary K. Wolfe called Who Censored Roger Rabbit. And actually, when I did one of my book recommendations, I was talking about another one of his books called The Killer Bowl. It was about a post-apocalyptic science fiction-y football game. So yeah, but yeah, it was based on a book. There is a book out there, and you can probably find it on Kindle. But I wanted to talk about not like my favorites in the larger sense, but some of my guilty pleasure movies that maybe are full of sex and violence, or something that isn't something you'd be like admitting to all your friends that you watch when you're feeling down, or that movie you love. And of course, my opinion on that is different. Other people might not have too cares about it, but I had to have some way to I had to have some standard for the video, so that's my standard. And all of them but one are filled with a little bit of sex and violence. So I'm going to show you that one first. The one that I would talk about that isn't filled with sex and violence, that I love, it's a guilty pleasure movie, is actually Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which is based off of Brian O'Malley's graphic novel series. And the graphic novel series is fantastic. I own 2 copies of that. And it's actually a great, great series. I love it, but I also love the movie. The movie's a lot of fun. I watch it when I'm down. It cheers me up, and it's just a whole lot of fun. Now, like I said, this one is the one that doesn't have a bunch of sex and violence in it, but because it's based off a graphic novel, because it's kind of silly, it's a guilty pleasure movie, because not everybody looks on this movie highly. I don't care. I love it. It's fun. It's a blast. I don't care if it's good or bad. It's just fun. And for me, like I've said, you can be bad, you can be good. Just don't be boring. And I love this movie. All right. So I'm going to start with the next one. Would be something that everybody knows. Everybody knows this is based on what it's based on, but I still love it, and I've been watching it since the 80s. Heavy metal. This is, of course, based on Heavy Metal magazine, and all the stories in here come out of different stories that were in Heavy Metal magazine, and except for the framing device, which I believe was unique to the movie. And I still read Heavy Metal. I think it's fantastic. The movie I still think is fantastic. The soundtrack is one of the best soundtracks ever made. I don't care what anybody says, and it's still a lot of fun. The animation kind of looks bad now, but it's too good not to watch. Actually, my favorite in here is actually the shortest one. It's the one with the B-17 bombers and the zombies. It's tiny, short, little piece in there. It's the shortest one, but it's still my favorite. It's so cool. I love it. All right. So next up will be Life Force. Life Force is based off of Colin Wilson's book Space Vampires, which I have a couple copies of. And the book's not as good. It's really not as good as the movie. But this is so much fun. You have a spaceship that they come across, and they find 3 humanoids in sleep containers that have been asleep for they don't know how long, and the entire rest of the ship is filled with these giant human-sized bat creatures. So they take the 3 humans back to Earth, and it's 2 males and a female. The female is the main character, the main villain of the movie, and she's kind of a psychic vampire of a kind, and she spends almost the entire movie naked, and she goes around sucking the life out of men who are entranced by her beauty, and she is a very beautiful girl, and she slowly works towards taking over England. It's silly, it's ridiculous, it's over the top, it's goofy, but it's fun. And Patrick Stewart is in it too. So you Star Trek fans, if you haven't seen this and you want to collect everything that your captain did for your new gen fans, yeah, he's actually in this. He's been in everything. Another movie I love that he's in was Excalibur. I don't call it a guilty pleasure movie, and whatever, but have you ever seen the movie Excalibur? It came out like the same year as like Heavy Metal and The Thing, I believe. Fantastic movie too. So it's based off of Le Morte d'Arthur, the original kind of take on King Arthur. It's fantastic. Anyway, I'm babbling. But yeah, so Life Force, fun sci-fi with a main character who's naked through 3/4 of the movie. Yeah. 68 Kill. This is based off a book by Brian Smith, who writes a lot of horror. This is not horror, although it really could be. You have a guy who's very subservient to his deranged, beautiful girlfriend, and she has a sugar daddy who she wants him to help her rip off. So he has $68,000 that he's going to use for a car, and she wants to have her boyfriend help rip off her other boyfriend and take off with the money. And they go to the house to rob him in the middle of the night, and all hell breaks loose and goes wrong. And this movie is a ridiculous, over-the-top, sexy, violent romp that's just ridiculous and fun and goofy, and I can't recommend it enough. You can find this streaming all the time, and I've probably seen it like 24 times now, but so I had to buy a copy. But it's out there for streaming for free, and it is absolutely ridiculous and over the top, and yeah, go watch it. Whatever you do, watch it. The Warriors. Love this movie. I've been watching it since it came out in like 79. Fantastic movie. Most of you probably know this movie. It's been around. It's a cult classic. It is, in fact, based on a book. Not only is it based on the book of the same name that was written in 1965 by Sal Urich, I believe it was, but there's no way you can't tell me that this movie and his book weren't based on, didn't come from originally, the famous Greek tale Anabasis by Xenophon. This is that book. The original Greek tale. I don't care about the book he wrote in 1965. This, if you've ever read Anabasis, this is that, about the story of the soldiers trapped behind enemy lines who have to fight their way home. That's what this is. This is about a bunch of gang members who are blamed for something they didn't do, get stuck in a wrong territory and have to fight their way home back to their home territory on Coney Island. It is just so good. It is so much fun. They did a director's cut, and I don't like the director's cut quite as much because I don't like the way they screwed up the ending. And by the ending, I mean the credit scene. The credit scene in the original was just so cool as they walked down the beach to Joe Walsh's The City playing, and it was perfect. And when they did the director's cut, they turned it into a movie that looks like a comic book. They have comic book cutaways, and the end is done in a comic book. I think the original is better. So if you can find an original version, if you can watch the original version versus the director's cut, do that because it's actually better. I drop stuff. Cruel Intentions. Do you know this movie? This is Sarah Michelle Gellar, fresh off of Buffy, which I was a huge fan of. So I had to see this. And this is 100% a guilty pleasure movie. It is sexy. It is goofy. It is, I don't know. It's just, it draws you in and it's a lot of fun. And I don't know why, because it's cruel and mean and vicious and is actually based on a book, a French book, Les Liaisons Dangereuses, which was also made into a movie called Dangerous Liaisons, or will be reprinted as a book called Dangerous Liaisons. And I cannot remember the French author's name. Let me look. I think I wrote it down. Pierre Chandelos Delaclos, something like that. So my apologies. Sorry about that. But yeah, this is a story about a stepbrother and sister who are rich and have way too much time on their hands. And the sister, Catherine, played by Sarah Michelle Gellar, gets a great deal of pleasure out of destroying people. She's a control freak who wants nothing more than to make herself more powerful at the expense of others. And she challenges her brothers to help her destroy another girl. And yeah, and that girl would be Reese Witherspoon. And it's just a gross movie, but it's so much fun. That's why it's a guilty pleasure movie. And if you haven't seen it, you should probably check it out. And finally, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. A lot of people are going to say, that's not a guilty pleasure movie. That's a great 80s movie. Yes, it is. But not everybody sees it that way because it is full of sex and infamous scenes. And and believe it or not, this was based on a book. And the problem is that you can't find the book anymore. The book, if you can find it, sells for like over $500. I did realize, going through all my old files, I have an old e-copy of the book from way back before they had all the things that didn't allow you to transfer, and I had downloaded everything. So I do need to read that book. And the book was written by the one and only Cameron Crowe. You probably know him from the likes of Jerry Maguire and Almost Famous. Yes, he wrote that book along with directing the movie. So that makes sense, right? And here's the funny thing is, people think that the book was a work of fiction, but in actuality, he went undercover for a year in high school, and it's actually a nonfiction book. So think about that for a moment. Fast Times at Ridgemont High was based on a nonfiction book. So yeah, that's interesting, and it has a really fun cast. Ray Walston plays the teacher. My favorite Martian. You have Sean Penn, Phoebe Cates, Jennifer Jason Leigh. Actually, when I was a kid, she was my '80s crush. Phoebe Cates was. So there's that. Phoebe Cates, not the character in the movie, because we don't fall in love with fictional characters. That's weird. But the actress, I did have a crush on when I was a kid. That was actually a lot from Gremlins, though, when her part in Gremlins. Yeah. Anyway, you know a little too much about me right at this point after this. So there you go. There's 6 of my favorite guilty pleasure movies that were based on books. Tell me what yours are. Tell me what movies based on books you love, that or books that were turned into movies that aren't well known, that people don't really know about. What are your favorite guilty pleasure movies based on books? Let me know. Love to hear it. Anyway, thanks guys, and remember Secret to Zen: read books, pet dogs, listen to metal, and watch bad movies. Love you guys, and I'll see you later. Thank you.